I was always interested in talking to older people about their experiences. I used to sit on a stoop in my hometown. Really, that may be the origins of my interest in history. Is that if you ask me where did it all begin, it probably began on a stoop in Bergenfield, New Jersey, as I went across the street and talked to my neighbors who both had served in World War One and said, "What was it like? What did you do? And how did you feel about it?" And little did I know those are questions that an oral historian might ask. I was just a curious 12-year-old. I liked reading history, particularly biography of notable people, from the time I was a boy. I read landmark books when I was a kid in the 1950s, learning about people like Patrick Henry or George Washington. I loved baseball biographies. I imbibed them by the gross, it seems. Um, as I got older, obviously, I got interested in more different aspects of American history, and I don't want to say that any one teacher really affected my interest in history. I think it was a natural outgrowth of what I cared about. The starting point is getting students to touch the stuff of history and to get excited about that, and many of them do, and to get them to then use the best uh, practices in doing history to make sense of the documents or other raw materials that they're working with so that they're, again, acting like historians and they come out feeling competent. And that's really an important thing, and we hope it carries over into all the work that they do. I am responsible for a boot camp course in history for history majors called Historical Method, which really deals with discourse, methodology, philosophy of history, the current conversation in history, if you will, to try to get students to think more like historians and to have the skills of sophisticated historians. And it struck me that from the beginning that hands-on learning is the best way to get students to learn. And so given that we are a venerable college and that we have an archives and that we have good materials, raw materials to work with, it seemed a no-brainer to me to get students over into the archives working, writing papers about aspects of the history of the college. And ever since I came here, we've been doing that, and we keep the stuff, and so we've created quite an archive of material. Some of it is actually secondary sources in the form of students' work, about a topic, but some of it is also primary sources. They've edited documents, letters, for example, that are in our collections, and they've done many, many oral histories of either Gettysburg people, or another project we have has been on World War II, another project on the Lincoln Highway, another project on the Gettysburg Seminary. But the students have done hands-on work, and a lot of it has been locally oriented. And I like that, and I think they like it. The whole issue of being a scholar and being a teacher at a liberal arts college should not entail some kind of great divide. The scholarship that we do in our professional lives should feed into our teaching and should make us more excited about what we're doing and also give us fresh material to work with, to share with our students. The issue of how accessible your scholarship is, of course, varies from person to person, but I happen to believe that if you can't convey what you're doing effectively to any intelligent person, student or not, then maybe you're not really the best kind of teacher, because scholarship and teaching should feed into one another rather than to be separated. And for my philosophy, I think that what I learn as I'm doing my scholarship always affects the teaching that I do. I can't make history matter to my students. I can only convey the enthusiasm I feel for studying the past and my commitment to learning about the past and to getting as much truth out of what I'm studying as I can. Students sometimes ask the question, why does history matter? But instinctively, they probably realize that a person without a sense of history is like a person walking across the street blind. You don't have a context for what's going to happen to you next. We really don't use history as a predictive mechanism. Anybody who tells you that because I study history, I know what's going to come next. But we can use history as a guidepost for ourselves, certainly a negative guidepost and things to avoid. Um, but I don't want to get too serious about this. One of the best reasons for studying history is that it's fun, that you get pleasure out of learning things about things that are distant from what you already know or that elaborate something that you may know. I like history because it satisfies on many different levels, and I hope my students will find that too. The book came about through a confluence of forces. A friend of mine who teaches at a neighboring institution had done one of these books for his institution and enjoyed the experience. And as we would talk together about mutual interests, he would say, "Michael, you need to write a book like this for Gettysburg College." As it happened, he did a little bit more than that. He contacted the publisher and said, "You need to tell Birkner to do this for Gettysburg College for your series," which they then asked me to do. It happened that the Gettysburg College's 175th anniversary was approaching, and it seemed like a really good time to look back at the college's history. There was no popular overall history of the college. We have a very authoritative, thick history of the college that most people don't have the time to work through. And so it struck me that this actually was the right project at the right time. Because we had the 175th anniversary ahead, it wasn't hard for me to get a grant from the college to get a student to help me with it, because there's a lot of digging in the archives that was involved to make this happen. Basically, what you're told is you've got 128 pages to fill, get the best images you can, and you've got an infinite number of images to look at. And so having help really made a difference. And I found a young man who just graduated from Gettysburg College who was a senior last year and was enthusiastic about working on this project, and we collaborated. The issue of writing is an intriguing one because everybody has their own style. And I have to say that I've read many times about people who are diligent and dedicated and get up at 5 in the morning and write for 2 hours. I have a colleague, in fact, who does that. And I am so admiring of people like that because I am as diligent and dedicated in that regard as you can be. I sort of write when the time seems right, the spirit moves me. I can write at 8 in the morning, I can write at midnight, I can write at times in between. The funny thing that I have found about writing is that you have to trick yourself to get work done, or at least I have to trick myself to get writing done. I say to myself, guarantee yourself 15 minutes. It's all you need to guarantee yourself. Just write for 15 minutes. And then once you do that, you're locked in and you're going to write for a lot longer. You're going to get into it. The trick is to find the 15 minutes that you can devote to this, and then it moves from there. I think being an alumnus of the college adds a dimension to my experience as a faculty member here. Every piece of ground has perhaps a little more significance for me as I walk it day by day than it might for someone who's coming in strictly from the outside. I think I can empathize that much better with my students and with colleagues. I think the fact that I left the college for the better part of 17 years before I was attracted back was extremely valuable to me because I think I'm a lot less provincial than I would be if I had spent my career at Gettysburg College alone. So I think I've really had the best of both worlds in that I was a student at Gettysburg College. I made lasting friendships at the college. I went off and did other things, including leaving academic world entirely and did real world things for a while. And then I came back, and it gave me an appreciation of what I was coming back to that I don't think I would have had if I hadn't been a student. And also, there's no question that my being an alum and having a kind of emotion for the place fuels the intensity of the work we do in college history and getting the students to collect the oral histories and getting the students to write the papers about different facets of college history. We've tried to cover everything, and of course we'll never cover everything, but we keep at it. And I feel really good when students themselves connect to these kinds of projects as undergraduates at Gettysburg in a way they might not connect to a project about the Franco-Prussian War or about the origins of the slave trade or something of that nature, because it's part of who they are. just as my teaching at Gettysburg has a special meaning for me because I'm a Gettysburg alum.